So I let this sit for about a week and I watched this back and I noticed it was a bit harsh. And without giving any context, this sounds unfair, so I just wanted to point something out. I'm not changing anything, but I figured I would start with a reminder. I loved the software integration that Beacn has built up here, and I was not shy about saying that in my video. It's an absolute game changer for streamers, and their DSP is absolutely fantastic. There's no shame in you wanting what this unit gives you, especially considering this is the only company doing this kind of stuff. However, as a reviewer, my goal is to inform. And in hardware testing, I found one big issue, which leads us to this video. So let's kick it off. In case you missed it, I reviewed the Beacn Studio on launch day a couple weeks ago. Always love being in on stuff like this, being the first to test gear out. It's really exciting and I love doing it. But it also comes with a heap of responsibility. Launches like this and all the others are intended to sell products like this. We, as reviewers, are being used as part of the marketing campaign. That is the trade-off for being able to have early access to this kind of stuff. And realistically, it's fine. That is, as long as both sides are being fair and representing the product realistically. Which brings us back to this, the Beacn Studio. Now, with all other noise aside, meaning not taking any other reviewer's experience into consideration, I want to, for the sake of transparency, show off my testing methodology. So I will walk you through what I did, and I will recreate that testing in front of you here today and discuss the implications of what the testing means. Now, in case you're wondering why I'm making this video, well, there's a couple reasons. First, I was receiving comments like this one, which thought I left the expander on. To be fair, that is a totally understandable perspective to have as a viewer. If you haven't met me or watched any of my videos, you don't know or trust me. So not being completely transparent in my approach is actually my fault, meaning I can't really get mad at comments like that. Secondly, the actual company Beacn reached out to me after the video and said this, and I quote, "Hey Aiden," now, they start out with some platitudes. Let's just fast forward to the fun stuff though. First, they offer up a chance for me to sit down with one of their DSP engineers, and then just flat out, they say this. As a quick example, there is no gate active on the preamp. We think you may have left the expander on when doing your tests, which explains some of the results you got. All of our spec tests are done with zero DSP processing, including no noise suppression. Ultimately, your experience is yours and totally okay if ultimately the product isn't for you, but we would love to help make sure that the tests and results are as accurate as possible. And smiley face just to really punch that in. Now, that response I can get mad at, and that alone is enough to warrant this video. Now, I'm going to talk about what my response was to them after I walk you through my testing methodology here, because frankly, those findings back up my reply. So with that said, let's move over to the PC and get that done. I'm doing this with a few different fail-safes going on. One, I have the screen right behind me so you can actually see what I'm doing. I'm also recording the screen at the same time, which I will introduce here. So now you have the screen that's behind me here, as well as the screen cap. So let's take a look at what exactly I have going on here to make sure that I'm not cheating the system. First up, we have our noise suppression, which is off, okay? Very important, noise suppression is off. We're gonna go next to the expander, and you can see, again, the expander is off. Now, just so you know, the compressor is on. We'll turn that off just for the sake of this, okay? Just so we can say everything is off and we don't have any issues. So with all that said, let's see what happens when this microphone doesn't have enough signal to pick up. Okay, so we're gonna whisper into this microphone and we're going to see what happens to it. Now, just so you know, I'm gonna be gaining this up in post, just so you can hear the expander kicking in. So let's add a little bit extra to this. And beside me, I've got my little friend. You can see it over here. This is called Fanny. This fan is pointed directly at the microphone that I'm talking into. And when I talk into the microphone, You can hear the fan running, right? It's in behind me. Only time you can actually not hear the fan is when I'm not talking. Now, there might be some of you that are still not believers in what I'm preaching here. So then let's take a look at screen grabs of the actual audio. Now, there is an irrefutable truth about audio and preamps. There is always noise coming through preamps. Rooms have noise. Noise is all around us, and there's noise in the electrical signal of everything that you're doing between the microphone to the interface to the computer. There is inherent noise no matter what. What happens when you look at a quiet segment of the Beacn studio? Well, there's nothing. This is the spectral view on Adobe Audition. So I'm going to play back exactly what this is, and then we're going to take a look at what happens whenever the audio drops off. And there's this big chasm of black there, and that black is a complete absence of audio. So then let's take a look at exactly what happens when it... So let's take a look. With all that said, let's see what happens. Now let's take a look at my review of the SSL2 Plus, and we'll look at some of the quiet moments in that. And you're going to see the exact opposite from what the Beacn Studio puts out. Even at its quietest moments, you're going to see actual noise, and it comes in the frame of a little bit of color kind of mixed in down at the very bottom of that spectral graph. Very impressive showing. But at the top of that list, you had 24-bit, 100. But at the top of that list, you had... That is what the Beacn is missing. Now, the only way the Beacn can achieve that is with an expander or a gate. Okay, let's go back to the response from Beacn, but not the whole thing, though, just a couple of the statements. As a quick example, there is no gate active on the preamp. This is extremely misleading. Sure, I use the term gate rather willy-nilly, and that is because I find a lot of people don't understand the difference between expanders and gates. Fine, that's on me, but this is just plain dumb and splitting hairs. This is gated audio. Whether it used a software expander or a software gate, this isn't how preamps work. Secondly, we think you may have left the expander on when doing your tests, which explains some of the results you got. This was a direct misdirection to try and discredit my work, knowing full well what your product is.
I beg your pardon.
And third, all of our spec tests are done with zero DSP processing, including no noise suppression. This is the worst one of them all. Now, I know some companies do some stuff with their numbers to make their product look better at launch. Things like presenting them in non-conventional ways, like EIN as DBV instead of DBU, or even completely just not listing certain specs at all. That's fine, because that stuff can be independently tested. But just fudging your numbers the way they did is not only shady, it's flat out dishonest. And I refuse to, with a straight face, spit numbers out like that at my audience. Again.
How very dare you.
Okay, so then let's get into my response. This is what I said back. Hey blank. So I went back and retested with the same methodology as I did when I was doing the review. And yes, there is a gate active on the preamp. There was nothing else active at the time or when I redid the testing. In response to your claim that there is no gate active on the preamp, it is literally part of the reviewer package, which states studio quality preamp up to 69 dB of ultra low noise gain, enhanced by our custom noise suppression algorithm to give near zero noise floor. So while it might not be considered a gate, it clearly works as one, meaning any testing done on the preamp for specs would be skewed by a noise suppression algorithm to mask the actual performance of the preamp. At which point I closed out the email with some platitudes. You see, it was in their very marketing material that the preamps had a custom noise suppression algorithm. So beat your head against a wall all you like. This is an expander or a gate that is on the preamp right here, meaning your testing methodology was bad, Beacn. Don't get me wrong, I don't care if you want to release a product with an expander or a gate on the preamp. There will be tons of people that will love it. Like this dude or dudette. didn't check. Or like all the others defending your honor on my video. You know, all the "you don't understand, this is for streamers, not for audio people." You could have chosen to call this the Mastergate 9000 and you still would have sold this thing. You could have leaned into it as hard as possible and you still would have sold this thing, but you didn't. And using software solutions to fudge your specs is actually unforgivable. Trust, either as a company or as a reviewer, is paramount. And once that trust is gone, rarely will you ever get it back. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching.